The flight attendant's voice rose sharply, cutting through the cabin, loud enough for all to hear. "I'm asking you one last time. Move to the back of the plane, or I will call security." Her words carried a biting edge, her tone dripping with condescension. Naomi, the black woman seated calmly, lifted her gaze to meet the attendant's. Unbothered, she spoke with unwavering confidence. "I've already told you, I'm not moving." Her voice was steady, almost soothing, yet it held an undeniable strength. She was being humiliated in front of everyone, but what happened next? No one saw it coming. The woman they assumed was powerless stood up and revealed exactly who she was. Before we dive deeper into the story, if you believe every person deserves respect regardless of their color, hit that subscribe button now, and let us know where you're watching from. Outside, the aircraft gleamed under the golden afternoon sun, its sleek design promising a journey of luxury. Inside, the cabin exuded pure opulence, plush leather seats, elegant gold accents, and an atmosphere so exclusive it made every passenger feel like royalty. Passengers moved with ease, their designer luggage rolling effortlessly behind them as they were guided toward the private jet waiting on the tarmac. Soon, they settled into their seats, some scrolling through their devices, others savoring glasses of champagne served by the attentive crew. Soft, ambient music played in the background, setting the perfect mood for a peaceful flight. Among them sat Naomi Williams, a woman in her late 30s, poised and composed. Dressed in a tailored navy blazer and matching slacks, she carried herself with a quiet elegance, never seeking attention, yet effortlessly commanding it. She walked with measured steps, her gaze briefly sweeping the cabin before she moved toward her seat. For Naomi, this wasn't just another trip, it was a journey to oversee her ever-growing empire. Though no one on board knew who she was, she preferred it that way for now. Standing near the entrance was Lauren, the lead flight attendant. Her uniform was immaculate, her sharp features exuding control. She greeted passengers one by one, flashing warm, friendly smiles, though her tone shifted depending on who she was speaking to. Lauren prided herself on keeping order aboard the plane, but her definition of order often depended on appearances. When she reached Naomi, her expression noticeably cooled. "Welcome aboard," she said curtly, the warmth in her voice now absent. Behind Naomi sat Mr. and Mrs. Raymond, a wealthy couple in their 60s who carried the air of seasoned travelers. Mrs. Raymond clutched a small knitting bag, her fingers already twitching to begin her work, while Mr. Raymond unfolded a newspaper, scanning his surroundings with mild curiosity. But when Lauren greeted them, her demeanor shifted instantly. Her smile brightened, her voice laced with warmth. "Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. Raymond. Lovely to have you with us again." Naomi noticed the stark contrast. She didn't react, but her calm eyes reflected an awareness of the unspoken dynamics at play. As the passengers settled, Lauren moved through the cabin, ensuring everything was in place. She stopped by the Raymonds, offering them an even brighter smile. "Is there anything I can get you before we take off?" she asked. Mrs. Raymond shook her head politely, already focused on her knitting. Mr. Raymond simply nodded toward his coffee, indicating his satisfaction. But when Lauren passed Naomi, her demeanor changed again. She cast a glance at Naomi's bag resting neatly under the seat and pursed her lips, her expression unreadable. Unlike with the others, she didn't pause to offer warmth or courtesy. She just walked by without a word. Have you ever been in a situation where someone's attitude shifted based on appearances? Share your experience in the comments and don't forget to subscribe for more eye-opening stories like this. Lauren Reed, in her early 40s, carried herself with the precision of someone who thrived on control. Everything about her was perfectly put together, from her pristine uniform to her coiffed hair. But beneath the polished exterior was a woman whose judgments were swift and unapologetic. She narrowed her eyes as she watched Naomi settle into her seat. Something about her didn't sit right, not her quiet confidence, not the way she didn't seek validation like the passengers Lauren deemed worthy of respect. In her mind, Naomi simply didn't belong. With quick, purposeful strides, Lauren approached, her lips curling into a tight smile. "Excuse me, ma'am," she said, her tone laced with condescension. "I believe you're in the wrong section." Naomi glanced up, her expression serene. "I believe this is my seat," she responded evenly. Lauren's smile didn't falter, but her tone grew sharper. "I don't think so. This section is reserved for our elite passengers." Nearby, other passengers began to take notice. A nosy socialite leaned in slightly, her curiosity piqued. A businessman across the aisle frowned, disapproving of Lauren's tone. Naomi remained composed, her gaze unwavering. "You might want to double-check your passenger list before making assumptions." Lauren's eyebrows arched, her irritation barely concealed. "I don't need to check anything," she said, her voice firm. "I know who belongs here and who doesn't." The tension thickened. Passengers exchanged glances, some whispering among themselves, while others awkwardly pretended not to notice. One murmured, "Why doesn't she just move if she's in the wrong seat?" Another shrugged, probably trying to sneak in for free upgrade. Lauren crossed her arms, standing her ground. "If you don't move to the back of the plane," she announced loudly, ensuring everyone could hear, "I'll have to call security." Naomi tilted her head slightly, her voice unwavering. "Call whoever you need to," she said simply. "But I'm not moving." A hushed gasp rippled through the cabin. The businessman leaned forward, his brow furrowed. Lauren, now visibly frustrated, turned to Grace, the junior flight attendant who had been watching nervously from the sidelines. "Grace," she snapped. "Escort her to the back. Now." Grace hesitated. She wanted to protest, to suggest checking the passenger list as Naomi had requested, but the sharp glare from Lauren made her hesitate. Still, she knew something wasn't right. Naomi shifted slightly in her seat, her calm presence unshaken. "You might want to think carefully about what you're doing," she said softly. Her words carried more weight than Lauren realized. Lauren scoffed, waving off the warning. "I know exactly what I'm doing." Naomi's lips curved into the faintest smile. "We'll see about that." The cabin remained silent, thick with tension. Every eye was now on them, waiting to see how this battle of wills would unfold. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We've been made aware of a situation on board, and I want to assure you it will be handled appropriately. Please remain seated and refrain from any further disturbances." Lauren's smirk faltered. For the first time, uncertainty flickered in her eyes. She turned toward Grace, who stood with her hands clasped tightly in front of her. "Did you call the captain?" Lauren hissed under her breath. Grace didn't answer. She simply lifted her chin slightly, her newfound resolve shining through. Naomi, still seated, adjusted her blazer calmly. Then, in a quiet but powerful voice, she said, "I gave you every chance to handle this professionally. But since you refused, you'll now have to face the consequences." The businessman who had spoken up earlier crossed his arms, his expression stern. "I've seen enough. This isn't just about a seat anymore. It's about how you treat people." Passengers murmured in agreement, some shaking their heads at Lauren's behavior. And then, just as the tension reached its peak, the cabin door opened. Two uniformed security officers stepped inside, their eyes scanning the scene. "Is there a problem here?" one of them asked. Lauren turned pale. She opened her mouth to speak, but before she could, Naomi stood up. Her presence commanded the room, her gaze unwavering. "Yes," Naomi said, her voice strong. "There has been a problem, but I believe it's about to be solved." Then, with the grace and power she had carried all along, Naomi reached into her blazer pocket and pulled out a sleek black card. She handed it to the officer, who read it before his eyes widened in realization. Lauren strained to see, her curiosity finally outweighing her arrogance. The officer turned to Lauren, his voice firm. "You just harassed the owner of this airline." A stunned silence fell over the cabin. Lauren's face drained of all color. What?" she stammered. Naomi let the moment settle before speaking. "I didn't want special treatment," she said smoothly. "I only wanted respect. But you showed me exactly who you are today." The passengers gasped in shock, some whispering amongst themselves. The businessman let out a low whistle. The officer turned to Naomi. Ma'am, how would you like us to handle this? Naomi regarded Lauren for a long moment. Then she simply said, "Escort her off my plane." Lauren's eyes widened in horror. "Wait, please, But it was too late. The officers stepped forward, one reaching for Lauren's arm as she stumbled back. Naomi sat back down, crossing her legs elegantly. She picked up her phone and typed a quick message. As the officers led Lauren away, she glanced up once more. "Next time, think before you judge someone." The cabin erupted in murmurs and quiet applause. The businessman chuckled. "Remind me never to underestimate a woman in a navy blazer again." Naomi smiled slightly, then turned her attention back to her book. Order had been restored. But for Lauren, the lesson had only just begun.